Commander Raven Walsh stood at the viewport of the UES horizon, watching the crystalline alien vessel shimmer against the backdrop of Europa's icy surface. After 15 years of deep space exploration, humanity had finally made contact with an advanced civilization. Though perhaps contact was too generous a term for what was currently transpiring. The Meridian ship, twice the size of the horizon and constructed of what appeared to be living crystal, had simply appeared from nowhere, scanned their vessel, and proceeded to ignore all attempts at communication. Through the viewport, Walsh could see patterns of light dancing across its surface, presumably some form of data transmission they couldn't yet understand. Another transmission attempt failed, Commander, Lieutenant Priya Patel reported from her communication station, frustration evident in her voice. They're receiving our signals, but they're choosing not to respond. Walsh ran a hand through her short silver hair, a premature gift from years of radiation exposure in deep space. Keep trying, Lieutenant. Switch to basic mathematical sequences if you have to. Even if they think we're primitive, math should be universal. The bridge crew worked in tense silence, broken only by the soft hum of the horizon's quantum core. Dr. Marcus Thompson, the ship's xenobiologist, studied his readings with growing fascination. Commander, the crystalline structure of their vessel, it's not just their technology. I'm detecting organic patterns. The ship itself might be alive. Before Walsh could respond, the massive alien vessel suddenly erupted in a cascade of prismatic light. The crew shielded their eyes as geometric patterns danced across the horizon's hull, scanning every inch of their ship. Multiple energy signatures, Security Chief David Ortiz called out, his hands hovering over the weapon controls. They're probing our quantum core. Walsh raised a hand, keeping him from activating defensive measures. Stand down, Chief. If they wanted to attack, they would have done so already. This is first contact, let's not start an interstellar incident. The scanning continued for several minutes before the alien vessel's light display suddenly ceased. A new pattern emerged on its surface, forming what appeared to be written characters that shifted and changed rapidly. Translation Matrix is attempting to decode, Patel announced, her fingers flying across her console. It's not a response to our communications. They're transmitting their findings about us to someone else. The translation slowly appeared on their screens, fragmentary but clear enough to understand the general meaning. Walsh felt her jaw tighten as she read. Species, carbon-based bipedal organisms. Technology level, pre-quantum civilization. Threat assessment, negligible. Recommendation, no further contact necessary. Mark system for future observation. They're dismissing us, Ortiz growled. Like we're some kind of primitive science experiment. Walsh watched as the alien vessel began to move away, its crystalline surface refracting Jupiter's distant light. They're making a mistake, Chief. One they might come to regret. She turned to address her crew. The Meridians might think they know everything about us from their scans, but they've missed something fundamental about humanity. What's that, Commander? Thompson asked, still recording data about the departing vessel. We don't take well to being underestimated. Walsh moved to the command chair, activating the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the Commander. What we've witnessed today changes everything. Somewhere out there is an advanced civilization that's deemed us unworthy of contact. They think they know our potential, our limits, our future. I say we prove them wrong. She paused, watching the alien ship disappear into a flash of quantum energy. As of this moment, every member of this crew is part of something historic. We're going to take what we've learned here, every scrap of data, every energy reading, every glimpse of their technology, and we're going to do what humanity does best. We're going to adapt, innovate, and overcome. The bridge crew straightened in their seats, a new determination visible in their postures. Walsh smiled grimly. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them first contact has been achieved, but not in the way we hoped. Tell them we have work to do. As the horizon turned back toward Earth, Walsh couldn't know that the Meridian's dismissal would turn out to be humanity's greatest advantage. In their arrogance, they had revealed glimpses of their technology, their methods, their very nature. And in the years to come, when a darkness emerged that threatened all life in the galaxy, that oversight would prove crucial. Because sometimes, the greatest strength lies in being underestimated. And humanity was about to prove just how dangerous that mistake could be. 5 years after the Meridian encounter, humanity had transformed its understanding of quantum physics. The brief scan of their vessel had provided insights that accelerated Earth's technological development by decades. The UES Horizon, once the pride of the fleet, now seemed primitive compared to the new vessels launching from Earth's orbital shipyards. Commander Raven Walsh stood on the bridge of her new ship, the UES Defiant, watching her crew prepare for their first quantum jump test. The vessel's dark hull absorbed light rather than reflecting it, a design choice that had emerged from studying the Meridian's crystalline technology and deliberately going in the opposite direction. Quantum core stable at 98%, Lieutenant Patel reported from her advanced communications station. In the years since their encounter, she had become the leading expert in decoding alien transmission patterns. Ready for jump on your mark. Before Walsh could give the order, proximity alarms blared across the bridge. Security Chief Ortiz, who had followed her to the new command, called out, multiple quantum signatures detected. Massive energy displacement. Space itself seemed to tear open, and through the breach emerged a Meridian vessel. But unlike the pristine crystalline ship they had encountered years ago, this one was damaged, its living crystal structure fractured and dulled. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, Patel announced, surprise evident in her voice. It's a distress signal. On screen, Walsh ordered, and the bridge view screen flickered to life. The image showed a Meridian bridge, far different from what they had imagined. The crystalline beings stood on multiple appendages, their bodies refracting light like living prisms. But now those bodies were cracked, their usual brilliant glow dimmed. This is High Commander Nexus of the Meridian Concordat, the alien's translated voice echoed through the bridge. To any vessels receiving this transmission, the threat we warned you about has arrived. The Void Walkers have breached our outer defenses. Our perfect crystalline technology, our harmonious civilization, we were wrong. We were all wrong. Walsh leaned forward in her command chair. Open a channel. When Patel nodded, she spoke clearly, High Commander, this is Commander Walsh of the UES Defiant. We remember your people. You scanned our vessel 5 years ago and deemed us unworthy of contact. The Meridian's crystalline form shimmered with what might have been embarrassment. Commander Walsh, our arrogance may have doomed us all. The Void Walkers, they are unlike anything we have encountered. They do not seek to destroy. They consume. Transform. Our perfect crystalline technology made us strong, but it also made us predictable. They adapted to our every defense. Tactical displays showed more quantum breaches forming. Through each one came another Meridian ship, each more damaged than the last. But behind them, emerging from the darkness of space, came something else. Something that seemed to drink in light itself. By the stars, Dr. Thompson whispered from his science station. They're not ships at all. They're living voids. The entities that pursued the Meridian vessels defied conventional physics. They appeared as tears in reality, three-dimensional shadows that moved with terrible purpose. Where they touched the Meridian ships, crystal turned to darkness, light became void. You cannot face them, Nexus warned. Our civilization spanned thousands of years. We had mastered the harmonies of the universe itself. And in less than a solar cycle, they have consumed nearly half our worlds. Walsh stood, her decision made. High Commander, you're in Earth-controlled space now. We'll cover your retreat. She turned to her crew. Battle stations. Chief Ortiz, power up the phase cannons. Dr. Thompson, I want everything you can tell me about these entities. Lieutenant Patel, alert Earth Command and request reinforcements. Commander Walsh, Nexus's voice held genuine concern. You cannot hope to stand against them. Your technology is far inferior to ours, and even we could not. With respect, High Commander, Walsh interrupted, a slight smile playing at her lips, you don't know what we've been doing these past 5 years. And more importantly, you don't know humanity. She turned to her tactical officer. Launch quantum probes. Let's show our guests what unpredictability looks like. The Defiant moved forward, its dark hull nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. Behind it, more Earth ships emerged from quantum jump points, vessels that bore little resemblance to traditional ship design. Each one was different, a deliberate choice born from humanity's understanding that uniformity was a weakness against adaptive enemies. You once dismissed us as primitive, Walsh transmitted to both the Meridians and the approaching Void Walkers. Now let's see if our primitive solutions might succeed where perfection failed. As the Void entities approached, humanity prepared to demonstrate why being underestimated was sometimes the greatest advantage of all. The real question was whether their unconventional approaches could stand against an enemy that had already consumed some of the most advanced civilizations in known space. The battle for survival was about to begin, and humanity's greatest strength, its ability to adapt and overcome, would be tested against an enemy that embodied those very same traits. The Emergency Council chamber aboard Earth's orbital defense station Unity had never hosted alien visitors before. Now, it held both human and Meridian leaders in an uneasy gathering. Commander Walsh watched as High Commander Nexus's crystalline form cast rainbow patterns across the dark walls, a stark contrast to the utilitarian design of the human facility. Your strategy is flawed, Senior Strategist Helios of the Meridian Concordat declared, his crystalline appendages vibrating with frustration. Random attack patterns, varied ship designs, intentionally inefficient power distribution, these go against every principle of advanced warfare. Admiral James Rivera, Earth Defense Force Commander, leaned forward in his chair. That's exactly the point. The Void Walkers adapt to patterns. They consume perfection. So we give them chaos instead. Dr. Thompson, who had been studying both Meridian biology and Void Walker data, projected a holographic display. Look at the battle telemetry. Every time your ships attacked in formation, using your harmonic weapons, the Void Walkers adapted within minutes. But our scattered attacks, while less powerful, caused lasting damage. The Meridian leaders' crystalline bodies pulsed with colors that the human translators interpreted as disbelief and reluctance. High Commander Nexus raised an appendage for attention. You ask us to abandon strategies refined over thousands of years. Our civilization is built on harmony, on perfection. And that's why you're losing, Walsh stated bluntly. The room fell silent. Your perfection made you strong, but it also made you predictable. The Void Walkers aren't just adapting to your technology, they're adapting to your entire way of thinking. Lieutenant Patel, who had been analyzing Meridian combat data, stepped forward. We've detected patterns in the Void Walkers' adaptation process. They don't just copy technology, they absorb and improve upon methodologies. Your perfect crystalline ships became the perfect template for them to corrupt. Security Chief Ortiz pulled up tactical displays showing the recent battle. Our ships look chaotic, but there's method in the madness. Each one is a prototype, an experiment. When the Void Walkers adapt to one approach, we're already trying 3 others. Impossible, Helios objected. The resource waste alone is necessary, Admiral Rivera interrupted. Humanity learned long ago that evolution isn't about perfection, it's about adaptation. Sometimes the most successful species aren't the strongest or most efficient, but the ones most capable of change. Walsh moved to the central display, bringing up images of Earth's newest defense platforms. "We've been preparing for something like this since you first scanned us and left. Not because we knew about the Void Walkers, but because humanity has always faced extinction-level threats. Our planet tried to kill us countless times, and each time we adapted and survived." The Meridian leaders conferred among themselves, their crystalline bodies resonating in frequencies that human sensors couldn't fully decode. Finally, High Commander Nexus approached the display. "Show us," he said simply. Over the next hours, humans and Meridians began the difficult process of collaboration. The Meridians' perfect crystalline technology was integrated with human chaos theory. Ships were redesigned, tactics reformed, strategies rewritten. "Your quantum cores," Dr. Thompson explained, examining a Meridian engine schematic, "they're too perfect, too stable. We need to introduce controlled instability." "Madness," a Meridian engineer objected. "Survival," Thompson corrected. "The Void Walkers expect systems to behave according to physical laws. So we break the laws." In the station's hangar bay, human engineers worked alongside Meridian crystal smiths, creating hybrid vessels that combined crystalline harmony with human unpredictability. The results were unlike anything either species had created before: ships that could shift their fundamental structure, weapons that operated on principles of controlled chaos. Commander Walsh found High Commander Nexus observing Earth through the station's viewport. The blue planet spun below, seemingly peaceful despite the frantic preparations taking place in orbit. "Your world," Nexus said without turning, "it is beautiful, but harsh. Now I understand why your species thinks so differently from ours. We evolved in perfect crystalline environments, seeking harmony. You evolved in chaos, learning to thrive in it." "There's harmony in chaos," Walsh replied, "and chaos in harmony. We just need to learn from each other to find the balance." A lieutenant rushed into the observation deck. "Commander, Admiral, long-range sensors have detected multiple Void Walker signatures. They're heading straight for the Sol system." Walsh and Nexus shared a look. The time for planning was over. Now they would see if this unlikely alliance of order and chaos could stand against an enemy that threatened to consume them all. "How long?" Walsh asked. "At their current speed, they'll reach our outer defense line in 48 hours. Nexus's crystalline form pulsed with determination. "Then we have 48 hours to teach my people how to embrace chaos." Walsh nodded grimly. "And we have 48 hours to learn enough about harmony to make that chaos count." She activated her comm link. "All personnel, this is Commander Walsh. The enemy approaches. Let's show them what happens when humanity and Meridians stand together." The greatest battle in human history was about to begin, and its outcome would determine not just the fate of Earth or the Meridian Concordat, but the future of all life in the galaxy. The combined fleet waited at Neptune's orbit, a strange assemblage of vessels that would have been unimaginable just days ago. Human ships, their dark hulls almost invisible against space, floated alongside modified Meridian vessels whose crystalline structures now pulsed with irregular patterns. Commander Walsh stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the tactical display as the Void Walkers approached. "Multiple quantum distortions detected," Lieutenant Patel reported, her voice steady despite the tension. "At least 30 Void Walker entities, including 3 we've never seen before. They're massive." The tactical display showed the truth of her words. While most of the Void Walkers were roughly the size of capital ships, the 3 new entities were planetary in scale, their darkness consuming all light that touched them. "Energy signatures are off the charts, Dr. Thompson added from his science station. "They've been busy since our last encounter. I'm detecting traces of absorbed Meridian technology, but it's evolved." High Commander Nexus's voice came through the command channel, his crystalline ship now bearing irregular patterns that seemed to shift and change randomly. They've consumed 3 more of our core worlds since we last met. Each victory makes them stronger, more adaptive. Then it's time we show them something they've never seen before, Walsh replied. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. All vessels, this is Commander Walsh. Everything we've planned, everything we've prepared for, comes down to this moment. Execute Operation Chaos Storm. The fleet began to move, but not in any traditional formation. Human vessels scattered in seemingly random directions, while Meridian ships performed maneuvers that went against their usual precise patterns. Each ship's quantum signature was deliberately unstable, making them harder to predict or track. The Void Walkers approached like a wave of living darkness. Their surface rippled as they analyzed the defenders, attempting to adapt to what they were seeing. But for the first time, they seemed hesitant. They're confused, Security Chief Ortiz noted with grim satisfaction. Their adaptive algorithms can't find a pattern to latch onto. Launch the first wave, Walsh ordered. From the human ships came swarms of small, unmanned vessels, each one different from the others. Some were crystalline, some metallic, some seemingly made of pure energy. The Void Walkers began to adapt, their surfaces shifting to counter each new threat. Now, Walsh commanded. The unmanned vessels detonated, not with traditional explosions, but with bursts of controlled chaos energy. The crystalline technology of the Meridians had been modified to generate quantum fluctuations that defied prediction. Where order had failed, disorder became a weapon. Several smaller Void Walkers collapsed, their perfectly adapted defenses useless against attacks that followed no logic. But the larger entities pressed forward, learning, changing. Multiple hull breaches reported across the fleet, Patel announced. The Meridian vessel light's harmony is gone. Just gone. Walsh watched as one of the planetary-scale Void Walkers extended tendrils of pure darkness, attempting to ensnare both human and Meridian ships. Execute Phase 2. All ships, implement random frequency shifts. The fleet's weapons changed frequency and power levels chaotically, never firing the same way twice. Meridian crystalline beams, once precise and harmonious, now fluctuated wildly. Human phase cannons cycled through impossible patterns. It's working, Dr. Thompson reported excitedly. Their adaptation rate is slowing. They can't predict what we'll do next because we don't know ourselves. But the victory was short-lived. The largest Void Walker entity suddenly pulsed with new energy, and a wave of absolute darkness spread across the battlefield. Ships caught in its path simply ceased to exist, their matter and energy absorbed into the void. 15 vessels lost, Ortiz reported grimly. Both human and Meridian. That thing, it's not just adapting anymore. It's creating new ways to consume. Walsh's mind raced. The Void Walkers were learning to adapt to even their chaos strategy. They needed something more, something even more unpredictable. Dr. Thompson, she called, what happens if we reverse the polarity of a quantum core while simultaneously introducing a crystalline resonance cascade? The scientist's eyes widened. That would be incredibly dangerous. The interaction between ordered and chaotic energy states could create a reaction that no one could predict, Walsh finished. Not even the Void Walkers. She opened a channel to High Commander Nexus. Commander, I have an idea, but it's going to sound crazy even by human standards. As she outlined her plan, Walsh could feel the fate of 2 civilizations hanging in the balance. The Void Walkers had proved that they could adapt to anything, order or chaos. Perhaps the only way to defeat them was to create something that transcended both. The question was whether they could implement such a desperate plan before the darkness consumed them all. The battlefield near Neptune's orbit had become a graveyard of broken ships and shattered dreams. But amid the destruction, Commander Walsh's desperate plan was taking shape. The surviving fleet formed a complex pattern, not the perfect formations the Meridians once favored, nor the pure chaos of human tactics, but something new. "All ships report ready," Lieutenant Patel announced, her voice tight with tension. "The quantum cores are synchronized in their unsynchronization, if that makes any sense." Dr. Thompson monitored the readings from his station, shaking his head in disbelief. "It doesn't make sense." "That's exactly why it might work." The massive void walkers approached, their planet-sized forms distorting space itself. Behind them, smaller entities consumed the debris of fallen ships, growing stronger with each absorption. But they had stopped their direct assault, seemingly wary of this new configuration. "They're trying to analyze us," High Commander Nexus transmitted from his vessel. "For the first time, I believe they're uncertain." Walsh allowed herself a grim smile. "Uncertainty is humanity's natural state, Commander. Time to share that gift." She opened a channel to all ships. "All vessels, initiate quantum resonance cascade. Random sequence, just like we planned." Across the fleet, human and Meridian ships began a carefully orchestrated dance of chaos. Each vessel's quantum core began to fluctuate wildly, but in patterns that somehow complemented each other. The Meridian's crystalline technology, once a symbol of perfect harmony, now pulsed with controlled instability. "Energy readings are off the scale," Ortiz reported. "The Void Walkers are responding. They're trying to adapt, but they can't predict which pattern to adapt to." The space between the fleet and the Void Walkers began to warp and twist. The quantum fluctuations created pockets of reality where order and chaos existed simultaneously, a state that should have been impossible. "Now," Walsh commanded. Phase 2. "All ships, release crystalline seed pods." From every vessel in the fleet came thousands of tiny crystalline structures, each one containing a mixture of Meridian harmony and human chaos. As they spread across space, they began to grow and change, forming impossible geometric patterns that defied both mathematics and reason. The Void Walkers reacted immediately, extending their darkness to consume these new threats. But as they absorbed the crystals, something unprecedented happened. The perfect darkness of their forms began to fragment, shot through with lines of light that shouldn't have existed. "It's working!" Dr. Thompson shouted. "The quantum resonance is forcing them to try to adapt to two opposing states simultaneously. They can't maintain cohesion." Walsh watched as the smallest Void Walkers began to collapse, their perfectly adapted forms unable to handle the paradox they were trying to process. But the largest entity, the one that had destroyed so many ships, was fighting back. Its darkness pulsed with new patterns, trying to find a way to consume even this impossible attack. "All ships, full power to quantum cores," Walsh ordered. "Pour everything we have into the resonance field. Show them what happens when humanity and Meridians truly work together." The combined fleet's energy output reached levels that should have torn reality apart. The crystalline seeds continued to multiply, creating a web of order and chaos that entangled the Void Walkers. Space itself seemed to hold its breath as two fundamental forces, perfect adaptation and pure unpredictability, clashed in a battle that would determine the fate of all life. With a silent flash that seemed to ripple through dimensions, the largest Void Walker entity suddenly stopped. Its surface, once perfect darkness, now writhed with conflicting patterns. In trying to adapt to both order and chaos simultaneously, it had reached an impossible state, a paradox made real. "Energy cascade building in the primary entity," Patel reported urgently. It's starting a chain reaction. "All ships, emergency quantum jump." Walsh commanded. "Get clear of the blast radius." The fleet engaged their drives just as the massive Void Walker imploded. The explosion wasn't one of energy or matter, but of possibility itself. Where the entity had been, space twisted in ways that defied comprehension, consuming the remaining Void Walkers in a maelstrom of order and chaos combined. When the dimensional distortions finally cleared, the Void Walkers were gone. Not destroyed in any conventional sense, but transformed by their own inability to adapt to something that defied adaptation itself. On the bridge of the Defiant, humans and Meridians stood together, watching the last echoes of the battle fade away. High Commander Nexus's voice came through the calm, his usual crystalline harmony now carrying traces of human unpredictability. "We thought we had reached the pinnacle of evolution," he said quietly. "Perfect, unchanging, eternal. But you taught us that true evolution never stops. That perfection is not an end, but a limitation." Walsh looked at her crew, human and Meridian working side by side, each changed by their contact with the other. "And you taught us that chaos alone isn't enough. The future belongs to those who can balance on the edge between order and disorder." "Perhaps," Nexus replied, "that is what the Void Walkers could never understand. They consumed and adapted to everything they encountered, but they could not adapt to the idea that some things are not meant to be adapted to. Some things are meant to remain in that beautiful, terrible space between certainty and possibility." As the fleet turned toward home, Walsh reflected on how far both species had come. The Meridians had learned to embrace imperfection, while humanity had discovered new forms of harmony. Together, they had proved that evolution's greatest achievement wasn't perfect adaptation or endless chaos, but the wisdom to know when to embrace each. The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if the universe itself was celebrating a future where diversity, of thought, of approach, of being, had proved stronger than any force of consumption and conformity. Humanity and the Meridians had not just survived, they had evolved, together, into something greater than either could have become alone.